here. And just we got some great things to talk about. Even though Mother Nature has won a lot of battles, we still got some other great stuff coming up in the motorsports world, right,
No
Curtis?
doubt. Yeah, no doubt. But Mother Nature still remains undefeated in lifetime history. So
That's true. A lot of good wins for her.
yeah.
Unfortunately.
So I'm just glad. Hope everybody out there avoided too much damage and everybody's safe. So. Especially our thoughts are with the folks that had the tornado over in western Iowa. So that's no good, but at the same time, everything does roll on. So here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, we just want to give a quick shout out to all of our racing family up in Spencer. A lot of real hard rains up there. Saw some areas that were flooded a little bit. So we just hope all you guys can make it back from Spencer safely. It was supposed to be a big race, 25,000 to win.
Yeah, that was a deal that really was heavily pushed on the Facebook stuff this winter, and I think they got a good amount of cars to sign up. I think roughly about half what they were hoping for. So I was kind of interested to see how everything would play out. I know they didn't get Monday night all the way in, but they called it a complete race. And then they were going to try and pick up today, but couldn't with the weather. So they canceled that completely. And I think they're supposed to start tomorrow afternoon, mid-afternoon maybe. So
yeah, that's what it sounds like. So good. I mean, they do a great job up there at the Clay County Fairgrounds of trying to get that track worked in as efficiently as possible, and overcoming because it seems like that area they get a lot of rain throughout the year and what. So again, we're just thinking of you guys up there. I hope everyone was safe during that. No one lost any cars or trailers or anything like that from the flooding. So we're thinking of you guys up there. But now, we're kind of on a schedule here, and we have two great drivers here to join us tonight as well for some interviews. We're going to take a quick commercial break, hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
All righty, safe. We do thank all of our sponsors for making our broadcast possible tonight. Again, we are broadcasting from Smoky Row in Oskaloosa, and our sponsors include Milo's Tree Service. Give Chris Minter a call at 641-683-2627. We also thank Sinclair Napa. Visit them at sinclairnapa.com. We thank Sigourney Body Shop, Tony, Yvonne, and the crew at 210 Clark Street in Sigourney. Also, CJ at Sigourney Motors for sales and service. Call 641-224-8056. We then stay in Sigourney for Sigourney Tree Care. I'm sure Zeb Webb and crew going to be busy after the storms today. Owned and operated by Zeb. Give him a call, 641-622-2097. We also thank Christy Tarr at American Family Insurance. All your protection under one roof. Get a hold of her at teamtar@amfam.com. And then also James Family Greenhouse in Sigourney. James Family Greenhouse and Produce. Make sure you check them out on Facebook or stop by at 701 East Jackson in Sigourney. All of our sponsors making our broadcast possible for TNT, the Tuesday night tune-up here on Steve Shetler Media. Safe and Curtis, let's go back to you guys.
Welcome back, race fans, to TNT, Tuesday Night Tune-Up, and we are live now here. This young man has been racing around this area for a few years. He hails from Sigourney, Iowa, driving a hobby stock. We have the number 88H, Cale Hemsley. I almost said J for some reason. I'm glad I caught myself there. Cale, thanks for joining us here tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, Cale, you grow up in a family of racers, and you've been around it for your whole life. You're in the hobby stock division, arguably one of the toughest classes to win really anywhere in southeast Iowa, but really hard at the Southern Iowa Speedway. What's the year been like for you so far with your running and so forth?
It's been a lot. It's been a good year. A lot of top fives, a lot of top tens. Southern Iowa Speedway is tough, though. I mean, we run second, third, fourth, fifth there, and you're doing pretty good then. Go up to CJ, run third last Friday, so that was really nice. We've had some bad luck there the past couple of years, so that was nice to get that out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hobby stock is such a growing class, it seems. And so for you, what are some of the biggest things for you with seeing these higher car counts on your end in this class? What's making it really competitive as you see in that class right now?
Some of the competitions, guys coming back down from stock cars, they make the drop back down, and that's tough. Other than that, there's a lot of good rookies in the hobby stock class, and there's guys that have never come out of the hobby stock that are really, really tough to beat. Everywhere. You go up to Marshalltown and like Eric Stanton, extremely fast, tough to beat. So.
Yeah, no doubt. So, to give us a little bit of history before what your race career's been like before you ventured in the hobby stocks here. 3 or 4 years ago, give or take?
3 years ago. Before that was like 2009. I started racing go-karts. We did that for about 5, 6 years, and then we kind of went on a dry spell. Dad tried racing again for a couple years. I don't know. He just never stuck with it. And then 3 years ago, we bought a hobby stock, and we've been doing it ever since.
So at least for me, I remember my first night in a hobby stock at the Southern Iowa Speedway. It was 2017. Des Moines wasn't racing anymore, and so we had the Anderson guys coming down here, Shannon Anderson and whatnot. I remember getting into staging for my first heat race. I had never been so nervous in my whole life. Here comes Shannon Anderson, pulls up next to me with a cigarette in his mouth, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, you need to smoke. You look pretty nervous over there." And I'm like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm good." And he's like, "All right." And then he throws the cigarette out, gets his helmet on, goes out there and dominate. What was it like for you, your first time at the Southern Iowa Speedway?
It seemed like my first year every heat race I'd draw Dustin, and at least Dustin. Keaton Gordon's always real fast too. He seemed to be in there. Eric Stanton, Aaron Martin. Every place we went, we traveled up to Vinton and we ran together. I mean, everywhere we went there, and I seemed to be in this heat race. So, some tough competition. But I just would always try and follow them for a little bit and figure out what they're doing. That made me a lot faster. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're exactly right. There's no slouches when it comes to that. Even when the field gets divided up in the heat races, it's a tough deal. You kind of mentioned some of the other tracks you've been going at. What's your schedule look like? Where you're going to be full time and where you're going to kind of maybe hit some races at? Well, how's that going to shake out this year?
We've been hitting Oski pretty much every week. Vinton, we're running up there for going to try some point stuff up there, and then Friday and Saturday. And the rest of the week just kind of hit and miss. And last week we went to CJ. I think this week we're going to go to Marshalltown. July 19th we're going to go to Britt for their hobby stock special.
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
So,
And one thing that's different in hobby stock versus a lot of these other classes is, they kind of go with more of a stock forward 9-inch rear end. So, when you talk changing gears, that's quite a process, is it not, for you trying to change gears? It sounds like you have to do it quite a bit.
yeah, we change gears pretty much after every race, and we got it down to a science. I just crawl underneath the car, and Dad grabs all the tools in the other gear, and we got it down to about 30 minutes. And if we needed to, we could push it a lot faster, but
Not much need in the garage, though. You
No,
can
no,
kind of do
yeah,
things at
we
your,
got
at
our
your good
time.
pace. And, well, that's great, man.
Yeah, and you see it, Kalen, like you were talking about earlier. You're seeing some stock car guys come back down to hobby stock. I know that, tires have been an issue. The cost of racing's gone up. Is that what you kind of see in your eyes is why some of these guys might be coming back to hobby stock, or,
I'm not sure. The couple of guys that dropped down seem to be doing real good in the stock car, so I'm not sure. Maybe it's less maintenance, so maybe they don't have to live with the car as much. But
Yeah, no doubt. Speaking of maintenance, how does that look for you guys? When you're running 2 or 3 or 4 nights a week, how do you squeeze all the necessary work in every night before the next night? It seems like some of those nights got to be pretty late. Is that true?
Yeah, there's definitely some past midnight nights, just making sure everything's ready. It goes up on 4 jack stands, and just front to back. That way nothing comes apart.
and talking about tires, for a long time in the hobby stocks, at least when I was around it, and I still know that this has been an issue, is tires. Now, it's not necessarily the same issue as the G60s on stock cars and what you guys run in Sport Mod, but it's different because they quit making kind of the tire that everyone was using in the hobby stock division. And, you kind of started, I think probably that was just starting to happen when you started. So what's that like for you now? Maybe trying to find a different tire, mess with those. Is that something you guys have had to do a lot of, or have you finally found one where you're happy with it?
Yeah, last year was quite the scramble. The prime well kind of went extinct, and I think everybody just went crazy, started buying tires, and I'm narrowed down to a couple that I prefer, but there's some good ones out there. Everywhere you go, you kind of see different tires on different cars, and I don't know, it's not like the prime well.
Yeah, I mean, those were, not only were they a great tire, but the price wise, I don't think you could really beat the pricing of what those prime wells were, but it was at the end there, it became quite a hassle to find them, and then they started upping the price, and no one really knew what was going to happen, I don't think, because there's nothing else like it out there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I know your dad pretty well, and I know he's kind of been studying that deal for the last couple of years pretty hard, and I got a feeling he pays pretty close attention when you guys go somewhere to what the fast guys are running, and makes a mental note or maybe grabs a notebook and scratches something down in there. So, but you're exactly right, Safe. That was the standby for the better part of a decade or so, and that's just the tire that everybody ran. It was inexpensive. It worked really good, and almost everybody had it. And now it's kind of opened that up. Do you think that that's played into a team like yours' hands, or do you think, Cale, that you would rather kind of have the known thing, or what are your thoughts on that?
I kind of liked it when everybody just ran the prime well. It just kept it sweet and simple. Branching out and finding new tires was fun, but you definitely run into some nights where you can tell. I mean, a tire will just pull apart, and it might cost you a night. So
Yeah,
that's tough.
and you lose that expense too, right? Because you're having to spend that money on question marks essentially at that point in time. You don't know, so.
And I feel like that's how racing has become kind of, though, is you have so many different shock manufacturers. You have guys wanting to try different spring packages, different, this, different that. So it's become really, it's just become so different than how it used to be. Is you ran this set of shocks here, or these set of shocks here, these are the springs. But now I feel like it's opened up, and not everyone's running the same stuff anymore. Is that kind of what, is that how it's been going for you guys at all? Have you been trying some different stuff? Because it's kind of become that way, it seems.
Definitely. There's a handful of different shock builders out there. I mean, when you go up to like the Sport Mod stock car, it gets even crazier. But just with the hobby stock, you got BHE, Goldfish, Precision, SMX. There's a ton of shock builders out there, and none of them are equal. So
it's just crazy where we've come, because we went from prime wells to now you're trying to find your own tires, and the cost has gone up, and same with shocks. I remember it was always, you got out the catalog at wherever and you ordered the Bilstein shocks, but now we don't have that anymore.
Well,
really,
we actually still do, and there's a lot of guys that still do that, and it's very economical compared to some of these custom built shocks.
Right.
These custom built shocks, you get $200, $225, $250 in a hobby stock shock, and you can. I think Bilstein's done a great job over the last 3 or 4 years of really expanding that off the shelf, if you will, valving availability, and made it to where a guy can get a shock that's good enough to win. We put them on customers' cars, and customers have won with them, in the last several years, and it's half the price.
Absolutely.
So that's a good thing, and that doesn't always happen in racing.
No.
Now the advantage to doing the custom shock package through a shock builder is that you get exactly what you want, and you can send that back to them, and they can make that adjustment. Or you get torn up in a wreck or something, you can send it back and they can replace just what needs to be replaced. So you're not replacing the whole shock. So there's some savings there, and that customization to your driving style, right?
Yes.
Just because this person runs this doesn't mean that's going to work for me or you or Safe when he was driving. Everybody takes something a little bit different.
I like it though. I mean, right on there. And we've talked about this a little bit, Al. Your family has been a big part of racing for a long time. So what's it like having your dad who's won a lot of races? He's been around a long time. What's that like for you, knowing that he's backing you, he's helping you, and he's been there for you through this right now?
It's definitely good. Definitely good when we were first starting to get kind of a base of where we want to be and then be able to build off that. Now we butt heads a little bit. That's all part of it. That's what makes it fun.
I can't imagine that.
What? No way.
No.
What? That doesn't sound like any driver and
Nope.
parent at a racetrack ever.
No father and son have ever had that happen.
That's never happened to you, right, Curtis?
No, never.
No,
never.
Yeah,
not,
there we go.
Not with my dad and not with Cole.
Absolutely. So, Cale, it takes a lot to make these teams go with the cost of everything and whatnot. Who are your sponsors that you want to thank for helping out on the 88H this year?
Can't do it without the people in the garage first, and that's definitely my dad and JT and Logan and Austin. Those guys they bust their butts. So, and then sponsors on the car would be like Exceptional Edge. They do tree service out of Sigourney. Sigourney Body Shop's always been a really good sponsor for us. Landgravy Lawn Care. Bomber Farms, Minky Livestock, Carol Hoover Racing Photos. That makes it really nice to be able to see what's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, Cale. We want to thank you for joining us tonight. We want to wish you luck for the rest of your season. If you want to find out more about Cale and his racing team, or you're interested, Hemsley Motorsports, you guys are on Facebook, correct?
Yeah, and we post every night. So
there you go. So make sure you follow Cale on his adventures. And thanks for coming on TNT tonight, Cale.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, buddy. Best of luck, man. We look for big things. You got a real bright future, and just as a little bit of advice, listen to your dad.
There you go. You heard it here, race fans. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Ron Verbeek here in just a few moments.
All righty, thanks, guys. And again, we thank all of our sponsors for making things possible here on the Tuesday Night Tune-Up TNT, live from Smoky Row in Oskaloosa. That includes Sigourney Tree Care, as we mentioned, Zeb, Webb, and Crew. Also, Christy Tarr at American Family Insurance, Team Tarr at amfam.com. We thank James Family Greenhouse and Produce in Sigourney for being a sponsor, as is Milo's Tree Service with Chris Minter. We also thank Sinclair Napa, sinclairnapa.com for more information on them. Sigourney Body Shop at 210 Clark Street in Sigourney, and Sigourney Motors. Call 641-224-8056. Let's go back to Safe and Curtis as they've got their next guest all lined up. Guys, let's go.
Hey, welcome back to TNT, the Tuesday Night Tune-Up, and we're really excited here tonight. This man's run a lot of races around Iowa and the following states. He's been with the USMTS many a times. Local race legend around here. We have Ron Verbeek. Ron, thanks for joining us here tonight on TNT.
Thanks for having me, I think.
Yeah. We kind of pulled Ron into this last minute, but Ron, why don't you just take us back to the beginning? I mean, you have so much history in Iowa.
So basically the beginning was I got in Pat Surface's stock car at Marshalltown for a mechanics race. Didn't want to, wanted nothing to do with it, and Pat's dad wouldn't get in it, so I was kind of forced into it. And got the bug, and then it wasn't much longer after that, and we built a hobby stock, and I guess the story goes from there.
What year was that? Just so we can officially nail this down in the red letter date in history.
I'm pretty sure that was 1987, and I think 88 is when I had my first car. But and I didn't do a lot in 88. We just kind of hit and miss. 87 I'm pretty sure is when that occurred.
So following that late 80s start into the the racing scene in Southeast Iowa here. Kind of walk us through the next several years because you ascended. I mean, you had success at every level.
Yeah.
But you also kind of always seemed like one of those guys that was striving pretty hard for that next thing, right? You wanted to conquer what you were doing and then move on to the next challenge, and you did a wonderful job of that over the years. Kind of walk us through how that went until you were kind of in the modified side of things.
So I basically, when I started, I had no idea that I was going to make it more than one race, let alone.
It was 1 week at a time,
Right,
right?
and so I drove a hobby stock up until 1994, and in '95 I bought my first stock car. It was a Schroeder car, and then from there I drove my own stock car until '98, and then '99 is when I bought a modified.
So you've been in modified racing for a lot of years. You worked up, you won a lot of races, and then you got into the USMTS side. Walk us through the transition from that into the open modified side with the USMTS.
So, I mean, when I started modified, I mean, I kind of got a first taste of open stuff before I ever did any IMCA stuff, because I drove for Jimmy Carter on and off in '97 and '98. And then I really wanted to buy a late model, and the better half of my program at home told me that it's too easy to take the kids here on Wednesday night, otherwise we was going to have to travel everywhere with the late model. And so I then decided to buy a modified, which we bought off of Jim Hughes, the first one was. And then so we did IMCA up until Todd Staley took over. I mean, I did some USMTS prior to that. I mean, even like 2000 or whatever, when Todd took it over, some places were local. And then basically after Todd took over Oskaloosa, then we've been USRA, USMTS ever since until last year. Now.
Ron, USMTS has always been, that is the cream of the crop of modified racing. You have arguably some of the best modified drivers in the country running that series. What was that like for you being there from, in the 2000s till up to last year? What's the caliber of driving like with that crew?
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's good drivers, everywhere, in IMCA as well. But it's pretty surreal to run against some of those guys. I mean, like Kelly Shryock and Mark Noble and Rodney Sanders, and I mean the list goes on and on and on. But for me, it was just like I felt like even though I might have been older than some of the guys I was raised, I always felt like I was a little kid on the block playing with the big guys. I mean, that's kind of how I always felt. I felt like it was basically a privilege to race against Zach Vanderbeek and all those guys that normally run USMTS all the time. I mean, for me it was just to have kind of fun, and if we have a good run, great, and if I didn't, I was disappointed if we didn't have good runs. And it's tough. I mean, that series is damn tough, so
yeah. I mean, let's face it, those guys are all essentially doing that for a living.
Yeah,
right.
For the most part, correct.
They've got either their own money or they drive for somebody, or they're sponsored by folks that can afford to put together that type of operation, and that's what they do. And if you do that every single day, and that's your focus every single day,
right,
you can't help
Right.
but be really, really good at it.
I mean,
and those guys all were.
Right. They are the WOO, you might say, or the Lucas Oil Racing, of modifieds.
Yep.
In all reality,
Absolutely.
they are the echelon that everyone kind of, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people strive to go after.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the toughest modified series out there. I mean, just from the
For traveling wise, it probably is the toughest.
travel.
Yeah, especially in this area.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have the whole UMP versus USMTS thing, and you can have the,
with soda versus.
right. I mean, you can have those arguments all day long, and until they, get some commonality in the rules, we'll probably never know that. However, The range that USMTS used to cover in those days, and maybe they still do, that was from Texas to Canada, wasn't it?
Yeah, basically. I mean, Texas, Minnesota. There was a time we would be over in Illinois and I mean Missouri, Arkansas. I mean, Nebraska. I mean, we kind of went everywhere for the most part. In the central part of the United States is what Todd and Janet pretty much focused on. But yeah, I mean, just you race wherever you could.
And it's crazy some of the shows they do. I mean, Alex and I were fortunate a few years ago. We went down to Mississippi Thunder Valley for the Dairyland Showdown, where it's the USMTS and the World Outlaw Late Models, and that is a heck of a facility. One of the best tracks I've ever been at. But I mean, you have two of the top groups there. I mean, heck of a show by both of them.
Right.
And you've been to a lot of races, you've been to a lot of tracks. What's maybe a couple of your favorite tracks that you've got to go to over the years?
So, favorite tracks. The one out here is not one of my favorite tracks. I've always had a love-hate relationship with Oskaloosa. I really have. Eldon was one of my favorites. Minnesota Chateau Speedway. Deer Creek is fun, but it's the same deal. I think with a lot of people, it's a love-hate deal with it, but it's bad to the bone fast. I always liked Des Moines when it was open. Bloomfield, we didn't get to run there a whole lot. I kind of liked it. Another one that I really got to like was Memphis. I mean, seemed to be a really good racetrack. But yeah, I've had a lot of success out here. I just never could find the right element to be successful every night.
Right, and that's a tough deal here anyway. I mean, I think everyone at this table, well, we all have raced at Oski, and yeah, it's a struggle. It's a dogfight every night, and for you, Ron, you've transitioned out of racing, but you've helped out a lot of guys like Zach Vanderbeek. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that relationship? Because I know you've kind of helped him with some stuff maybe and crewed for him a little bit here with the Vanderbilt race car stuff.
Yeah, so Zach and I go quite a ways back. I mean, he's a little bit younger than me, and when he first started, he was a baby-faced snot-nosed brat. I say that lovingly, but the thing that I could embarrass him on with the snap of my finger, and I mean, that was one thing I really liked about him when he was younger, because he was easy to embarrass, and now I could probably do things that I shouldn't even talk about to him, and it wouldn't even faze him now. But we've stayed good friends all these years, and I enjoy going and helping Zach and then going with him to racetracks, and if I get the opportunity to go help him in the shop and stuff like that. I mean, it kind of keeps me involved now that I've backed off of the racing on my own, because I still enjoy going to the races, and as most drivers can't do, I am a fan, and I can go watch races, and it doesn't really faze me a bit. Do I miss it when I go? Oh, hell yeah, I do. I mean, because it's always ingrained in you. I mean, I've done this for 37 years, so I'm always going to miss it. I'll always think I can continue to do it, and that was one of the reasons why I raced on my own last year. But Zach is a great guy, and I appreciate him greatly, because last year would not have happened if it wouldn't have been for him and him allowing me to basically get one of his cars and fixing it and racing. And I had the season that I was kind of hoping for to begin with, but it actually came to blossom, and I was pretty proud of what we did last year on a short notice.
Yeah. And I think you should be. It was I don't want to over dramatize it or anything like that, but it really kind of was a storybook type of situation. Now, what led up to last year was a nightmare type situation. Could just for the folks out there that may not know everything that it kind of transpired over the last 2 or 3 years. Can you just kind of walk folks through that, and then walk us through, especially through the parts of last year? Because last year, even though it was some very fairy tale type moments, there were also a few pretty darn bad moments as well. So just share. Obviously, we know that, but share with the folks watching maybe at home.
So 2015, 14, I sold out completely. And then about a year later, a friend of mine that I'd known in racing for a long time, Doug France, gave me a call and said, hey, he said, we want to go racing Saturday night. My driver's not able to. Can you come up to Webster City and hop in the car? And I said, sure. So then I raced that night and the fall challenge out here for him that year. Then the next thing, I'm back in the seat for him in 2016. And we spent 8 years together. Well, then the fall of, this is 22, we were at Webster City. We raced the Fall Futurity race on Friday night, and I had a wedding I had to go to Saturday night, so Doug was going to put another person in for Saturday, and that was basically our hurrah. That was it for us. I mean, Doug was selling everything, and I was ready to kind of be not so much done, but had a lot going on around the house and at home. And so then I get a phone call, and Doug had basically had a heart attack in the garage that next morning. Long story short, he passes away. So then I knew I was going to have to be the liaison to help his wife get rid of everything. So I basically told my wife, I said, it's just easier for me to buy her out, because I kind of had a little bit of partnership with Doug. And I said, then I'll sell it all off. Well, then I buy her out, and I told my wife, I said, I really don't want to end this way. And I don't want Doug's quote-unquote legacy, because Doug's been an owner for a very long time,
and extremely successful in different periods throughout his history of owning.
Yes.
Extremely
championships and lots of wins and stuff like that. So then I said, I'm gonna race this car. Well, then one day Zach goes, hey, he says, I got a chassis, and it's kind of not in the best shape, but he goes, if anybody can fix it, it can be you. So then I took that and fixed it, put it all together, and did all the updates on it. And before I did that, I made sure Zach signed off on it, because I wasn't going to make him look like a fool by me putting, I can make a fool of myself pretty easily. I don't need to make him look like one. So, and away we went. And then, we had a couple of wins last year, had some really good runs. I didn't get to race as much as I wanted to, because we got a late start with what we had, but and the one race I really wanted to finish out last year was Deer Creek Speedway, for the Fall Jamboree, and we got rained out the last 2 nights. But yeah, it was how do I want to word it? It was a trying year, but it was a heartfelt year, and I'm pretty sure Doug had been pretty proud of what we did, I really do.
Well, I'll go one step further, and it's easy for me because I'm separated from that. I have no doubt that he's extremely proud of that, and was probably watching from above, and maybe even guiding you a little bit with some of your decisions and changes and stuff like that, like he used to do. So
there was a few times I was sitting in a seat and I'd be like, whatever you do, don't let me mess this up tonight.
There you go.
So it was a good year. It was tough to see everything leave the shop a couple months ago, but at the same time, I still think I can get it done. In fact, I know I can. It was time to move on, I guess, more or less. I'd love to drive something else if I got the opportunity, but if it doesn't arise, then the good Lord has a reason for that,
Yep. Well, and it's got to be better knowing that if that doesn't happen, that you were still able to finish on your terms at that point in time, instead of under tragic circumstances.
Absolutely. That was the biggest reason. It was not just for him, it was also for me to say, this is the way I want to finish things, so.
Yep.
Absolutely. And Ron, we want to just thank you for coming on here tonight, but thank you for everything you've done for the racing community over your your span of your career. I mean, I grew up watching you,
Yeah.
and that was always really cool. And then to see where you led your path, and then everything, the success you had with USMTS and everything there, and now you're, helping out Zach and some other guys and whatnot. It's just an incredible thing that you do. And the racing family, it's still strong, and we all care about one another, which is great. And it's awesome to see you still part of the racing family around here.
Yeah, I mean, the racing, you're right about the racing family. It's a pretty tight-knit bunch. I mean, they help each other when they can. I mean, there is obviously a lot of fights in the racing family. A lot of things don't always go the way that we all want them to go, but at the same time, if push comes to shove, I'm pretty sure we all have pretty much each other's back, really do. I mean, and a lot of people don't understand that. Out in the real world, it's like, oh man, what an expensive hobby. And it's like, it's not a hobby, it's a passion. That's a different, it's different.
It's not something you do. It's part of who you are.
Correct.
And that's one thing that I am so super proud, and I've known a lot of great race car drivers and car owners and crew members in my racing career, and I would rank you right up there with the very best of them. But above that, one thing that always impressed me about you was the way that you were an advocate for racing in general. And what I mean by that, for those at home that may not necessarily understand that, or that may not make sense, racers know racers, and there's no finer compliment that any racer can give another racer by calling him a true racer. Kenny Schrader has a true racer award that he hands out annually to somebody that exemplifies that, and that's exactly what Ron Verbeek is to me. He's a true racer that did things not always necessarily the easiest or the best way,
Correct.
but he did it his way.
Right.
And he never hesitated to help those that needed it, and he was there to lend a hand or a bit of advice or whatever he could at the time. And that's a testament not only to the type of racer you were, but the type of man that you are. And I can't think of a higher compliment to pay you, because you're as good as they come in my book, brother. And I'm honored to get to talk to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Ron, for coming on again.
You bet.
You mean
Thanks
a lot
for
to
having
everyone
me.
around here, and maybe someday we could see you one night in a car for one night. That'd be pretty awesome. Who knows?
Right.
Zach, if you're watching, anyone can make that. Would probably be him. I'd love to see you a night in a stock car.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've sat in one of those, and I went and helped Zach a couple of times, and it kind of makes your brain think a little bit, for sure. So.
Oh boy, look out! Well, thanks for coming on tonight, Ron. Again,
You bet, buddy.
Always
Thank
great
you
to talk
so
to
much.
a racing
appreciate it,
local
guys.
legend like you. So, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break here, and we'll be back with some results and some juice next here on TNT, the Tuesday Night Tune-Up.
All righty, thanks guys, and let's run down our
Appreciate you, man.
sponsors
Yep. Thanks,
that make our broadcast possible here on the Tuesday Night Tune-Up. If my computer would work with me, we do thank Sigourney Motors. Give them a call at 641-224-8056. We also thank Sinclair Napa. Go to sinclairnapa.com. Boy, my computer is acting goofy on me here. Let's see here. We do thank Sigourney Body Shop, Sigourney Motors, Sinclair Napa, Milo's Tree Service, Sigourney Tree Care. There we go. American Family Insurance with Christy Tarr. We got James Family Greenhouse in Sigourney. And again, as I ran through earlier, Milo's Tree Service, as well as Sinclair Napa, Sigourney Body Shop, and Sigourney Motors. Let's go back to Safe and Curtis. I can't wait to hear what's the juice. Give us
man.
the juice.
All right, well, welcome back to TNT, the Tuesday Night Tune-Up here, as we're about to talk. We got some really good stuff to talk about here tonight, Curtis.
Yeah, man, you got a whole paper there. and I can read it this week. So this is
Yes,
this is
I did
like-
a good job. See,
this
I
is
don't
like
have the worst handwriting.
Not at all. Not at all. It's but hey, you didn't win most improved 3 years in a row in grade school like I did. So
That's about the only thing I won. Definitely not in racing.
yeah,
so.
no doubt, no doubt. So what do we got coming up here, partner?
Well, I mean, tomorrow night we have the cool seamless gutters and Midwest Genetics Salute to Troops night. So any former military or active military, if you bring your ID with you tomorrow to the track, you get in for free. Since we are getting into Memorial Day weekend, honoring those who fought and died for this country, so we could do awesome stuff like dirt track racing. So just an awesome way to say thank you to all of our military out there.
Yeah, no doubt. Huge thank you to all those that gave their lives, defending our country. That's it's more than just a long weekend, right? I mean, it's for us to remember those folks, and that's the ultimate sacrifice. And I know that for me personally, that's not taken lightly by any stretch.
Absolutely. And it seems like that's always a big night for a lot of guys. They love to win on that night to show that the level of respect they have for our military. It's not about the money to them they win or anything like that. It's about going out there and winning for these families, for the troops, for all that. So it's going to be an awesome night tomorrow night at the Southern Iowa Speedway. For what I know, they're still on for tomorrow night. We were pretty fortunate and didn't get hit with as much rain as some other areas. We did get a good chunk there, but I don't think we got as much as some of our friends up north did. So we're hoping that we will still have racing action at the Southern Iowa Speedway tomorrow night.
Yeah,
so.
no doubt about that. What else is going on? We had the big race up in Spencer, maybe potentially concluding tomorrow night.
Yep, the 25,000 win stock car race. A lot of great drivers up there at that show. You have the Murdy boys, Ricky Thornton. As far as I know, he's still up there. I'm not sure with his scheduling if he'll be able to stay or not with the Lucas Oil Series. But yeah, I mean, just a really good group of stock cars are up there.
Yeah,
And all cars, really. I mean, it's
Yeah, you looked at those heat races up there in every class, and it was literally a who's who of competitors. So that's hopefully shaping up to be an exciting show.
absolutely. And then, just some of our national stuff. We're not going to go too deep. World Outlaw Sprint Cars, they're out in Ohio right now for the Ohio Speed Week. That's always a really big deal for them. It seems like the Ohio Speed Week and then Pennsylvania Speed Week are their two big ones. David Gravel, not shockingly, won Saturday night at Sharon Speedway. I think that's 6 in a row for him. It's not 6 in a row because Buddy Kofoid won the night before, so he was on a six run there. So
he's definitely got it figured out and running really well. When's the next week, or when's the next race in that Ohio Speed Week?
They race the 24th and the 25th, so that would be later this week.
Friday, Saturday?
Yeah, Friday, Saturday. They run at Atomic Speedway for 2 days. It used to be they raced a different track every night, but this year they're spending the weekend at the same track. I don't know what's going on there, but it looks like the late model series is doing the same thing this year, so I don't know what's going on. It's kind of different.
Maybe a little format change.
But Atomic is a great racetrack for those guys. I know they always look forward to that. It's kind of a big event for them. So, and again, talking about the late model series, they went to Path Valley Speedway over in Illinois. Or no, not in Illinois. I can't remember where Path Valley is, but Illinois driver won. The smooth operator, Bobby Pierce. No shock. It didn't take him long to get back onto the top there with the World Outlaw Late Model Series.
No, they're going to get their momentum back and be right up there from here on out. What do they got coming? Do they have some races this weekend?
Yeah, they'll be in Utah at Ultimate Motor Park. That's a new track for them. They haven't ran there before. I've never even heard of it. I just know it's in Utah.
Wow.
So if you want to watch that, you can go on Dirt Vision and find the both World Outlaws, the sprint cars, and the late models live on Dirt Vision this weekend. So got some good stuff going there. And then it's hard to talk about racing without talking about the High Limit Series. Again, they had another first win driver over the weekend. I actually got to watch that race on TV. Rico Abreu coming up with a big win at Utica Rome out in New York. Probably one of the toughest tracks that they go to on that very hard, compact, almost concrete surface track out in the Big Apple.
He looked really good. In that feature, he had that thing on rails. So
yeah, he really walked the dog with that one. And then they race this weekend. They're going to be at Port Royal over in Pennsylvania.
The Weichert Memorial, right?
Bob Weichert Memorial, big race.
It's about as big as it gets in that area for shows. That's a high-paying, very prestigious race. Mm-hmm. I know there were some guys heading back west from that high limit stuff that stopped in there and ran Port Royal last week on their weekly show. So it'd be interesting. So that pretty much sums up what we got going on the national scene.
Absolutely.
What you got in the juice, bud?
Oh, the juice, man. We got some good stuff. The first thing, and it's not a shocker, we're going to talk about this right now. It's Young Money Kyle Larson.
Is there anything he's not amazing in? Because it doesn't appear that
it's crazy.
Maybe space shuttles.
He's won the Knoxville Nationals. He's won
obviously
the
Winston
Chili
Cup.
Bowl.
Yeah, I mean NASCAR
Cup champion.
Yeah.
It's just hard to say these prestigious races without
Jumps in a
saying
dirt late model
Kyle
and
Larson
wins.
won this. Kyle Larson won that. He won this. Now he gets into an Indy car. Didn't have much practice. Not very happy about that either, which he expressed quite a bit.
Yeah, and then he had an issue in his qualifying run on Saturday where he had a mechanical issue. Mm-hmm. Had to abort that, came back and timed good enough to run in the top 10 deal then Sunday afternoon. And where's he going to line up for the Indy 500 this week?
Fifth.
Yeah, middle of the second row.
Shocker.
First time he's ever been
First
there.
time, and it's crazy to think about. It's also crazy to think, and Tony Stewart's done this, where he's qualified for the 500, and then he had to go race Charlotte. Kyle Larson will race 1,100 miles on Sunday in 2 different states in the same day. I cannot imagine what that would be like as a driver and the mental capacity it takes to be able to do so. That's a lot. And then in 2 different cars that drive completely different crews, different crew chiefs. Neither of them are the same at all. You have nothing that's similar. So
it's amazing. There literally is. I'm convinced there's nothing he can't do.
I agree. It's almost scary. And then you have guys like Tony Stewart, who's been really big in that sport, in the motor sport world for a long time. And he's like, this kid's better than me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Whether you like Kyle Larson or you don't like Kyle Larson, right? That's totally up to you to think or do whatever you want there. But I think we all need to understand that this is probably a once-in-a-generation type situation. And we just need to see this for what it is. And did he make a mistake in that heat race, over in Indiana in the high limit deal and kind of slid up and run into that kid and turned over and tore his stuff up and tore that kid up? He absolutely did. But he also climbed out of the car and said, yep, that was me. I did that.
But it's the most human thing that could happen to him because everyone has pinned him as this. There's nothing better than Kyle Larson. And then we've seen this streak this year of Kyle Larson is a human. Kyle Larson makes mistakes. Kyle Larson isn't going to win everything he goes to.
But then he gets in an Indy car.
But then he does this.
Yeah,
and
it's just like all right,
forget
wow,
everything
yeah,
that happened before
yeah.
that point. It's nuts.
Yeah. So it's exciting to see what Sunday, weather pending right now. I think the weather looks a little questionable over in Indy. So we'll have to see how that goes. But but Sunday's certainly a big day in the motorsports world.
It is. And then and real quick, then you have Kyle saying, "There's someone out there better than me, and his name's Corey Day." And then it's like, what? You know, everyone is and then you have Corey Day coming in, around with the high limits, having success. He has arguably one of the best sprint car racers of the times helping him, Jason Myers. And that kid is on a trajectory to possibly be the next Kyle Larson. And then he goes and gets in a pavement car and runs top 10 and then wins.
Yeah, benefits from the invert, starts on the front row and then drives off into the sunset. So it's pretty impressive. And right now, I'm not prepared to put him on a Tony Stewart, AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti, Kyle Larson type thing. But I think that his future is on a definite, hugely upward trajectory.
And imagine if in a few years from now we're talking about this and it happens. There's a good potential of that.
Yeah, very
it's
well
crazy.
Could. Very well could. So.
And then the other thing we get to talk about here is completely unrelated, but it stays in NASCAR, and this is getting back to the good old days of NASCAR when if you had a problem with someone, you just go deck them in the side of the head. Ding, ding, ding. I wish we could bring the sound up on the computer right now from Steve. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. versus Kyle Busch. Only the second lap into the All-Star race. All hell breaks loose between those two, and then it ends with Kyle smirking at Ricky and Ricky decking him in the side of the head.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty wild. So I actually was sitting down at my mother and father-in-law's and watching this with those guys after going through a lot of the graduation stuff over last weekend. And congratulations to my oldest, Connor, who graduated with honors from Oscar High School.
Good job, Connor.
Yeah, so that's
awesome.
So,
proud parent moment.
Very proud. But yeah, so when I watched it live, I thought Stenhouse did run him up the track, and he bounced off the wall, and then he went into the next corner and rolled right back up on him, and then went down into the turn 1 and 2 and run in the back of him and turned him head on into the wall. And I thought, well, that's maybe a little bit much for the second lap of the race, but I kind of understand the frustration. Then I watched a replay of it from someone's camera behind him, and I don't think Stenhouse ran him up into the wall. I think that he was just a little high, and Stenhouse snuck through there, and the 8 wasn't lifting, and he bounced off the wall and maybe thought Stenhouse had done him wrong or whatever. And then when you listen to the video of them after the race, it was kind of classic Kyle Busch. Like he just didn't care about whatever and had no idea that it probably wasn't, Stenhouse that did anything. And then Stenhouse, he's one of those guys, I think when he says something, he's going to do it. And he said that in the interview, I'm going to, hopefully Kyle's car owner will hold my watch. That kind of goes back to, several years. But, he basically told everybody then that he was going to hit him, and he did. So I heard a rumor today that maybe NASCAR's considering some things there, but we'll just have to see how that shakes out. I think NASCAR's really good at letting that stuff cycle and stay in the news and all that stuff. So they probably won't announce anything until at least tomorrow or Thursday. So I don't know. Time will tell. We'll have to see.
It's just been crazy though, and Ricky and Kyle have both run in NASCAR together, sprint cars and stuff like that, and late models. And what really got me about it is again classic Kyle Busch. We saw him years ago in the Craftsman Truck Series when he takes the Ron Hornaday out, and all Ron had to do was finish the race, and he gets taken out instead. Because
take him out of the championship.
Take him out of the championship, lost the championship, and it's just kind of come full circle almost. It seems where if you poke at someone long enough, something's going to happen. And then what really gets me is Ricky's walking away, or well, he's getting dragged away. Let's be honest, and he says something to Kyle, and then Kyle says, "Listen, I'm just as bad of a driver as you are."
Yeah,
It's like, really, man?
And here's the deal. I think what he meant was we both were running like garbage, right? It was a 5-car race, and they were running 20th, right? So, Ricky has had decidedly less successful Cup career. I don't know that makes him necessarily any less of a driver necessarily. It's just maybe less equipment. But at the same time, NASCAR's got to be super happy about this because the rest of the race was completely unexciting under any circumstances. I was all ready for the 2 different tires to be exciting and neat, and all they did was leave the soft ones on and just run the whole race with the soft ones on, and there just wasn't much of anything there. And I think that it's a real problem NASCAR's got to get figured out. They came out with this new car, and it was going to do all these things. Well, not only has it not done most of the things that they wanted it to do, it's actually doing the things that it should be doing worse than the other car. And the short track races are absolutely horrible to try and watch. And
it's depressing.
It's not only that, the car looks ridiculous on the racetrack.
And then they stick one of them in a Le Mans race, and it's the biggest, most grotesque thing out there compared to all the Le Mans cars.
I mean, it ran fast and it did great in that application, but it just is so far removed. It's like NASCAR literally says, all right, what's the worst decision we can make with what direction we need to go with the last 2 or 3 versions of race cars, and we want to alienate all of our fan base. And then they do the worst thing that they can do. The car of tomorrow was potentially safer, but created horrible racing and looked even worse.
Yeah.
They mess with that car for a decade, get it to where it races good, and now they come out with this thing, and it looks horrible. And for the most part, other than maybe super speedways, which I don't even really call that racing at that point, because there's a lot of mental ability in that, but not a ton of driving ability at that point. And it just really is. As a lifelong NASCAR fan, it is so hard for me to see that stuff. And here we are. What are we talking about when it comes to NASCAR?
Fights.
Some guy got wrecked and he hit the other guy. We're not talking about what we should be talking about. We should have seen this amazing race Saturday night, and here we are.
Bring back the 09 Cup cars with the wings.
I don't know about that.
No, but I think at least it was entertaining. Then,
right?
They got to do something. It's so bad.
I think so.
I'm more excited about IndyCar now, and I'm not. And
the Indy 500 is a big deal. So.
Other things to like, but yeah. So again, we just want to remind everyone to come out to the Southern Iowa Speedway tomorrow night.
Fingers crossed we can get her day in.
Hopefully we can. Friday night, if you're looking for a track, Columbus Junction, or you can go to Marshalltown Saturday night.
I think Lee County's Friday again this week.
Sorry.
One more week.
Yep, one more week.
Eddyville already canceled their big drag race weekend.
Yep.
So
Chaos on the Cornfields canceled.
Still, hopefully, lots of stuff, and Mother Nature won't mess it up.
Absolutely. So again, race fans, we want to thank you for joining Curtis and I on TNT, the Tuesday night tune-up. Unfortunately, I will not be here next week, so we'll let Curtis maybe run the show by himself and see how that goes. You'll do fine. So anyway, Steve, why don't you take us home?
Hey, alrighty, thanks guys, and another successful Tuesday night tune-up here at Smoky Road, Oskaloosa. We thank all of our sponsors for making our broadcast possible. We'll do it again next Tuesday.